time a commander of soldiers, and I want to pretend for a few moments here that I'm your commander. I want everyone to get up on their feet. I want everybody to put their arms up in the air and shake your hands. I want everyone to outstanding. Take your seats.
Thank you.
You have been wonderfully patient. I acknowledge you all. When I was your age, in the 8th and 9th grade, I was going to school in Greece, Salonika, Greece. My father was a college professor, and he was teaching English to Greek students. So I traveled all around Europe and the Middle East with him, and then I spent 2 more years in college in Munich, Germany. And again, I traveled all throughout Europe and Central Europe and the Middle East. So I grew up understanding there are other ways of life. There are other things to believe in. There are other things to value. There are other ways to raise your families and other things to value. I appreciated that, but I also appreciated just how very special being an American citizen is, because I could see the disparity in opportunity, the disparity in the language and education. So you are all fortunate. You have nothing to compare it to, so you'll have to take my word for it right now. But there may come a time in your life as you grow that you begin to appreciate you, in some ways, you got born on third base. Okay? Things can be difficult, but things for many people in the world can be even much more difficult. I want to repeat what has been said by a number of folks here. There are a lot of ways to serve your country. One of them may involve serving in the military. My brother retired as an Air Force colonel, 30 years. But he spent 3 years in Africa, in Botswana, and 6 months in Suriname, working to improve the quality of these people's lives. That's going to be something that will be about making a difference in your life. I tried to think, what could I have held on to if I'd been your age and somebody came to speak to me about war, about what it is to be a veteran when I was your age? I don't know. I was born at the end of World War II. When I was your age, Korea had come and gone. By the time I got to college, Vietnam was just beginning. I was in Europe. I understood history, but I didn't have a real grasp of politics or economics or history. So it was an abstraction to me. I was the first person in my family to serve in the military. However, one of my uncles was a Tuskegee Airman. You may have heard of that group of men. The armed services were segregated during World War II, but there were units of African Americans who were allowed to serve in isolated groups, and the Tuskegee Airmen distinguished themselves in combat during World War II. Now, when World War II took place, 1 out of 10 Americans was directly involved in the war effort. 10% of America. During Vietnam, that number dropped to about 5%. In these 2 wars taking place right now in Iraq and Afghanistan, 0.5% of Americans are involved. So you can see that it's become far more scattered. If you don't have a cousin or a neighbor or someone at church who is involved in the war, you hear about it, but it may not directly affect you. But it does affect the people who are involved. That's what's important for you to understand. I learned how to read when I was 3 years old. So I was considered a pretty sharp kid, and I read a lot of books as I grew up. I skipped grades. I passed tests. I learned to speak different languages. You are gaining knowledge right now, but in your lifetime, you can gain more. You have access to more information in a week than your grandfathers had in their lifetime. It's, again, you have nothing to compare it to. This is your life. There is information out there for you, but information is not the same thing as wisdom. So you want to take in as much information as you can, and then you want to compare it to other opinions, other points of view, so that you find out what is really of value. And it's not just stuff. Now, I became an actor after Vietnam. I spent 5 months in the hospital being put back together, and they didn't expect me to live very long. I was a TV director before I was drafted, and so I became an actor to learn how to talk to my actors, and I fell in love with it. I've done a lot of films and television shows and things that have been seen by millions and millions and millions of people. On Sunday, I'm performing in a play right now, but I happen to be home for a minute. I'm looking at an NFL game, and I see a commercial in which I appeared. That's cool in a sense. Gee, look, there's my face on TV. Millions of people are seeing this. What I have done for the last 40 years as an actor in The X-Files and Seinfeld and Kevin Almighty, you know, the rest of these things, that's entertainment. It might seem important because it's happening in front of millions of people, but it's entertainment. What I do right now as a veteran, as an advocate for soldiers who have emotional problems, that's important. And you're going to have to learn to distinguish between things that create a lot of buzz and a lot of attention and things that really matter. If one of you, just one of you, comes away from this or goes on in life and comes up with a way to communicate with other human beings, you can transform the world. Human beings have been fighting with each other since we carried clubs around and learned how to walk upright. And yet we're still doing it. There are people who are angry. There are people who are fearful. There are people who are covetous and jealous. They want wealth. They want power. They're just mean. They're just evil. It does not have to be that way. And one of you may be the one person that knows, that learns how to change that. We got 26 letters in the alphabet, right? You can, what do you do with those letters? You can write Mad Magazine. You can write a comic book. You can write the Bible. You can write the Constitution. They're just letters. It's what you do with them to put them together that may change things. So I encourage you all to care about each other, to find and embrace values of humanity. I am sad every day because there are many people I dearly cared for and respected who didn't get to come home. And there's something called survivor guilt. Those of us who went through difficult times but somehow managed to make it out feel very badly about those friends and colleagues and brothers in arms who didn't get to come home. This is a picture of me in combat. I know it's small, but this is my brother, Nguyen Van Dai. He was my counterpart. There were many days I didn't speak English. I commanded a 5-man team and taught Vietnamese farmers how to defend their crops and their families and their children. I loved my work. I loved my people. I miss them very much. This gentleman here spoke of helping to train Iraqi soldiers, Afghani soldiers, to defend their own country. Remember, service is a very, very important thing for every human being. You owe something to the rest of each other. There is more in this world than just you. So you're going to feel better about yourself, and the world will be a better place if you can find a way to commit to that and serve. Thank you.